just make sure it's consistent all the way through. Let's see, your cover page. Right here, your unknown ID, that's what I was talking about when I said make sure y'all remember y'all's numbers. So you're going to literally put like unknown ID number, colon, and then like 82. So that way, obviously I still know y'all's names, so the numbers for me doesn't really matter, but it's still like important, especially for if something happens to both the master and your lawyer, it's really smart plates, then it's easier for us to find like the numbers on the like these little two graphs. So make sure, again, I'm re-emphasizing this, so take me seriously, that remembering and writing down and like storing your ID somewhere where you're gonna know where it is, very, very important, because you're gonna need it for the entire rest of the 2 weeks. And then this, so you're still gonna be writing your entire paper and then like going through like, oh, like I found out that my unknown is like E. coli. You're still gonna need to write it on like the cover page, so that way I can like tell right off the bat, like, okay, good, they got it right. So your cover page is pretty important. Obviously, as you can tell, this right here, your materials and methods and your results and your discussion, this right here, that's almost like you get all of this right, and then you also get like some like of these bonus points around here. That's already a passing grade, even without like getting like the Gram-Sting right, even without like making sure like your master work completer right. As long as you write the paper correctly, that's a passing already. So your introduction, in my humble opinion, the introduction is kind of stupid because you have to like justify why you're writing the unknown project. I would write this down because for me personally, it was very hard for me to figure out what the justification was for it. Essentially, why we're doing the unknown project is so that way we can get an introduction to clinical testing, so that way we understand, you know, like how to find out what bacteria are infecting like a patient in a clinical setting, for example. We do it also just to get like a more hands-on understanding, because I think all of us are nursing majors, right? For the most part, health sciences, respiratory. Okay, yeah. So from a clinical perspective, obviously none of us are actually going to be like running like microbiology tests, right? But it's still important for us to understand like, you know, the nature of them, how they can be affecting the patient, et cetera, especially gram nature, since that's how we understand like, oh yeah, this antibiotic is literally going to kill my patient if I give it. So from a clinical perspective, very important to identifying, developing plans of action, antibiotic treatments, stuff like that. So as long as you put together some like combination of those phrases, obviously in a way that makes sense because I know I just rambled, but full credit for introduction. Our introduction, like for the project itself, just say, you know, unknown project, we're identifying an unknown bacteria. That's basically it. Yeah, so just make sure you understand like why we're doing it, even if you don't personally understand why we're doing it, as long as you can regurgitate some meaning for it, then boom, 5 points for your introduction right there. I know my IA last semester said that he wanted 2 paragraphs for the introduction. Basically just like this right here, your introduction for the project and what it's about, that's a paragraph. Why you do it, that's another paragraph. So yeah, about like half a page or so for your introduction. For materials and methods, again, this is a very big hitter, 20 points. Each of these components is 5 points each. So let me go ahead and pull it up. So I went ahead, this little study chart right here, this is going to be y'all's best friend for the next 2 weeks, because this is literally a condensed version of every single test that you may be running. It has your key ingredients, it has what's a positive and negative result, it has the type of test that it is. So if you get stuck anywhere along the way, the POSLA from before spring break, that's also going to be a really good resource, because if you wrote it well enough, then you can literally basically copy and paste it onto your unknown paper. But if not, This is also a really good resource. This one, this document right here as well, it separates them into what you're doing for gram-positive and gram-negative species. And this is a little more bare bones because there's not really a word count or a page count for it, but obviously like I'm not gonna accept like the 2-page paper because then you're like not writing anything of substance. And I'm gonna be like, go ahead and try again, send it back in like a week. So this is a little too bare bones for the paper itself, but fluff this up a little bit, give it some meat, some calories, and this is basically like as well. Don't copy and paste it because it's gonna, there's a plagiarism like checker bot reader thing on Canvas that it's gonna go through. If you copy and paste it, since this is on Canvas, it's gonna flag your paper as like a 20% plagiarism, and I'm gonna be like, oh, that's not good. What's going on? Let me check. And that's just more stuff for me. So don't copy and paste it again, but you can use this as a reference, and you can use you can use the study chart as a reference too. It's this PDF right here. So this unknown project folder, all of this is gonna be your reference, again, as well as me. I'm not gonna gatekeep anything from y'all unless I physically have to. So your materials and methods. Yeah, this is all gonna be, if y'all have ever written like a lab report for a different science class or like a research paper or something like that, you know, your methods is gonna be like actual paragraphs. So break it up. Each test is gonna be its own like paragraph, right? If you want, for like stylistic sake, you can like separate each step into its own paragraph as well. But for the most part, like don't number your steps really. Just use like first we do X, second we do Y, third we do Z, and then stuff like that. So you use your little paragraph transitions and stuff like that. But yeah, basically each of these is just gonna be its own like don't like separate it based on each of these points, but make sure you include all of these. So I would cross-reference your paper pretty frequently with the rubric, since this is obviously going to be where all of your points are coming from. So just make sure, like, I don't know, sleep with the fucking rubric if you want, like keep it underneath your pillow so that way you can be like, oh my god, I forgot that part, let me look at it real fast. Don't do that, that's like actual like lunatic behavior, but you get the idea. Materials and methods is going to be its own section. Results is going to be another section. This is going to be where you're actually like writing, not. So your results and your discussion, let's see. Yeah, so your results, you're going to actually be talking about like positive, negative results, right? So say you're running your MSA test, turns yellow. Right, so you're gonna upload your image of that positive MSA test, like take an actual physical picture of the plate. Your table of results as shown in the guide. This is the .pdf I just showed y'all, where it had like everything summarized together. So basically, if you use that table as a format and then add a separate column for the photo of it, that's like an easy full credit right there. Figure legend. This is just labeling y'all's photos, basically. So make sure you label the table. You don't have to do like the whole like table 1, table of biochemical test results. Just say like table of results. We don't have an appendix because we have one table. But for the images themselves, write like a little caption. Say like image of a positive MSA test, image of a negative sim test for Indolete, stuff like that. So the captions are going to be a big part of it, and then the actual like labeling the table itself is going to be a big part of it as well. You don't need to include your include your gram stain in that table as well. So your first row should be gram stain. It's not like a selective differential test, it's just a stain, right? But you're still going to give like a very brief summary of what the gram stain is used for. Your key ingredients, which are crystal violet, safranin, and our acid alcohol and iodine. Make make sure you use those whenever we do our gram stain, because there's 2 other stains on there I think that you should not be using. Make sure you're using Crystal Violet and Safranin. Right? Yeah, okay. So include all of that onto your table. So obviously there's not going to be like a positive, negative result in terms of like, oh yeah, like this is present, this is not present. But you're still going to be saying like, oh yeah, like a positive result is indicated, like gram positive is indicated by its same purple, etc., etc. So all of this is going to be together in one table. For your discussion, another big hitter, correct identification of unknown. Again, technically, if you run tests and your tests point to it being a certain bacteria, even if that's not the one that you received, you're still going to get full credit for this. Because your tests, the test pathway that you followed, led directly to that bacteria. And as long as I can look at your photos and be like, oh yeah, I can see why they would think that that's a negative result instead of a positive result, and I'm not looking at it thinking, that's definitely a positive result, I just don't think that they know what a positive result looks like, I'll give you full credit for that. I don't know if we're technically supposed to get full credit, I'm going to give you full credit. Discussing our unknown species, so this is literally just like, Escherichia coli is a gram-negative bacillus, it's able to do this, this, and this, it's a facultative anaerobe, that's a it's not a facultative anaerobe, it's a, you know, whatever, it's a mesophile, it's not halophilic, it's etc., etc. So basically, literally like describing like all of its key characteristics, that's going to be one paragraph. So talking about the species itself, not related to like what it does in the body, or like what it does in the body in relation to like its location in the body, but not necessarily like what it affects us with, what it does to us, just like how it is like isolated from illnesses and stuff like that. Because you're going to be discussing that in the next paragraph, which is your significance of it in a healthcare context. So your healthcare context, as it says in the name, this is going to be like E. coli, and it becomes infectious because it comes to a different part of the body. You name different infections associated with it. You name different treatment courses. So it's a gram-negative, so we don't treat it with antibiotics, but we can treat it with like XYZ. All of your citations pretty much are going to be coming from this paragraph. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend, as soon as you figure out what your bacteria is, find scientific literature related to it, so that way you can put that into your citations and know what you're going to be writing about ahead of time. PubMed is a good resource. National Health Institute, Centers for Disease Control are good resources. Looking through ALPEC. So, do y'all know how to do the research databases through ALPEC? Yes, no? Do you want to look through it just in case? Alright, I'm going to take this time to say yes. So if we look up literally ALPEC library, where'd my mouse go? There it is. ALPEC library, this is how oh my god. Yeah. Click on ALPEC library, literally first result on the page, start your research. For research purposes, whenever you're looking up key terms, you want to make sure you keep them together with quotation marks. So if we're looking up E. coli, right? Keep it together like that. That's a misspell. I don't know how to spell. That in one set of quotation marks, in another set maybe like infectious diseases or something like that, right? Press search. This probably isn't, oh my god, this probably isn't going to come up with, oh my god, this probably isn't going to come up with anything since I misspelled E. coli. But it's the thought that counts in terms of this, since I already wrote this, so I don't have to worry about it. Oh, perfect, other people will spell it too. So we want to look for papers where we have this. Our LibKey Instant PDF means that you're literally just going to be able to click on it. It'll automatically access whatever scientific journal it's on, because we're going through it using our Texas State University accounts, which gives us free access to a lot of different institutions. Pulls up the PDF, boom. When I my paper, I literally just combed through, found one quote that suited what I needed, copied and pasted that bad boy with the citation next to it, and I ignored the rest of the paper because we don't need to be looking at the entire thing because that's time wasted. So obviously make sure that like you're writing a relevant thing related to your article. Like you're not writing like E. coli is a non-pathogenic bacteria when it's literally pathogenesis of meningitis in the name of the article. I'm gonna look at that and I'm gonna be like, that's sus. Go ahead and send it back to me another week. Try again. But yeah, so Alpec Library is definitely going to be your best friend since I know a lot of papers that you just find through like Google Scholar can't really access those unless you use your Texas State email. JSTOR you can't access unless you have your Texas State email, stuff like that. So it's easier to just like be able to go through it with it like everything you're able to access already under one like website instead of having to go through like individually like type your email in and stuff for everything. But yeah, I think it should say it on here that you need 3 citations. It says peer-reviewed academic sources. I know we're supposed to be sticklers about that since really anybody can write a paper and publish it and say like, oh yeah, this was accredited by X, Y, and Z, and then it's actually not. As long as it's not coming from like a .com website about some like single anti-vax mom who's like very against, you know, like using antibiotics and is using alternative medicines to cure her child's like chronic illness. I'm not gonna double check it really. Just make sure it's like, you know, reputable source, you're using the correct citations, and you're using at least 3 of them. Also technically, we're supposed to be spreading the citations throughout the paper. In my humble opinion, the only section that really needs citations is the discussion. So as long as your citations are filling up this place, and I don't know, maybe you're like, oh, I don't actually know this is correct. Let me look up something for like a positive result for ENB, or I want to add an interesting fact to my introduction. Let me find a cool citation online. As long as your stuff in here is cited, I'm going to give you full points pretty much for references as well. APA format is very important. Make sure you know how to cite APA, or at least find a good citation generator that actually gives you APA formatting, because I know that if you cite things off of like PubMed, for example, and you select like APA 7, sometimes it just doesn't want to give you the right citation for some reason. So make sure your citations are correct, because that is one thing that I'm going to be looking at a little more closely than everything else, which is a pretty low bar to begin with. But I'm going to be looking at the citations pretty closely. Just make sure, you know, if you don't know APA citation format, look it up. Purdue University has a pretty good like summary of how to cite it and like how to write your citation list and everything like that. But yeah, references are a pretty big part. Make sure you're also using the right in-text citations, because in-text citations for APA are different from NLA. I think it's like you have like the last names of the author, and then it's like the year, and then like MLA is something separate. I think you have to use like the page number even if it's for a journal. But make sure you also know how to use APA in-text citations, because that's also a different point basis thingy. Altogether, I think my paper, I got lucky and my unknown only had to take 2 tests. So I was done writing my paper by like if I was taking it this semester, I would have been done with it by like Friday. I also fucked up and did the wrong like order of steps, but that's not important. What is important is I got it done fast and I got full credit. But realistically, you're probably gonna be spending like the next week and then maybe a little into the next week as well. So the week that we're out for lab, writing your paper, doing your tests, etc., etc. Since I'm not gonna be here to micromanage y'all, even though I don't really micromanage y'all to begin with. This right here is new, and I would definitely make sure you're paying attention to this whenever y'all come into lab, because it's 10 points off per incident for not only being not properly dressed, but also for not cleaning up after yourself. Since you're gonna be writing your initials on your tests whenever you put them into the incubator, or none of them have to go into the fridge, whenever you put them into the incubator, I don't know how stringent the IAs are gonna be about that, but they might be pretty stringent. So make sure you're disposing of your tests after you finish. Make sure that once you're totally finished with the project, as in like you're done with writing it, or at least getting pictures of it and running your tests, make sure you throw out your master plate, your working plate, all of your tests from the incubator again. Making sure that your lab station is clear, etc., etc. Being not properly dressed in the lab. I don't know if like they're gonna ask you for your name or something, and I communicate that across like our little group chat that we have among the IAs. But it's still just good practice. Make sure we're following our dress codes. No open-toed shoes. No midriff showing. No like overly short shorts or whatever. No shorts in general. Those are very important, because I think getting like 20 points taken off just for coming in and properly dressed when you would have otherwise received 100 on your paper is kind of a dumb way to lose points. So make sure we're keeping that in mind. But yeah, other than that, again, the bonus on here, it only says that slip from the Slack or the Writing Center. For us, if you email it to me after you get your rough draft finished, as in like assuming it was like totally free of mistakes, you would be turning it in, I'll give you the extra 5 points for that, as well as feedback. I consider myself a pretty good writer, so I'll give y'all some good feedback, don't worry. But yeah, so that's an extra 5 points. It's a pretty easy way to get 5 points since you're not having to go to the Writing Center or the Slack, so I would recommend doing that, you know. But other than that, I think that's pretty much it. Do we have any questions about the rubric or any paper?
What does the table have to have in it again?
It's basically just gonna be a copy, well, not a copy, but a pretty good look-alike of this one. So you're gonna be writing down what type of test it is, your key ingredients, what the ingredients do. I don't think you need to technically write this. You do need to write the summary, and you also need to write what a positive and negative result indicate and what result you received. So the picture that you're going to be taking of your test, that's going to go onto the table as well, so like an extra column, like I said, and then underneath that you would write like a positive test for BEA or a negative result for catalase and stuff like that.
So you said we would have 2 plates to work with, right? So the master plate and working plate. And are we supposed to do like strips of isolation for those, and then incubate it, and then work with the working plate, and then keep the master plate in fridge? Or?
Exactly, yeah. So you're gonna keep, I'm gonna double check on that, because actually now that I think about it, I can't remember if your working plate will stay in the fridge, like in between tests. I'll get back to y'all on that by tomorrow. But yeah, so both your master and your working plates are gonna be isolation strips. And then master is 100% what? Incubate it first, because there's no point in sticking it in the fridge if there's no growth on it. Incubate it for 24 hours or whatever, come in tomorrow, and then move your master plate over to the fridge once you get like pictures of it, and make sure that you have your isolation on it. Because part of the rubric is that your master plate and working plate are both free of contamination. So if there's any foreign matter growing on it, obviously it's contaminated. I am going to be taking points off of that, since that's aseptic technique, and that's pretty important for y'all to know for healthcare stuff. But yeah, so master plate, working plate is present, that's just having the pictures of it in your paper. So making sure you take pictures of it once you get the growth on that plate. Free of contamination, making sure that you only get your isolated colonies and obviously like the growth from each quadrant, and making sure there's nothing else growing on that. And properly labeled, that's just like, you know, lab section, your initials, and then working plate / master plate on like either one. I think probably you don't need to write your ID number, like whatever, like your 82, 85, whatever on the plate itself. It might be good just to have like another thing of like, oh yeah, I remember that my ID number is this, just so that we can have like everywhere, literally. But it's not like a necessity. As long as you have your initials, your lab section, and the working / master plate written on it, boom, full points for the labeling of it. Any other questions? All right. I'm also still debating. I think I am, because I still have the paper that I wrote last semester. Obviously, don't copy and paste it because it is going to show up as 100% plagiarized on Canvas, and I'm going to be like, wow, that's a blow to my ego. But I'll probably end up uploading it onto Canvas as a reference point for y'all, so that way y'all know. It does, last semester, Abel forgot to take out, there was a part where we had to make like a flow chart, like the ones for the species up on the cabinet, and like, oh yeah, like making sure like the one that we received, the one that we tested for isn't like green or whatever. Ignore that flow chart, but other than that, like everything on that paper is exactly the way that it should be written. So like the formatting, what I was talking about, like your materials and methods section, how it should be like separated into like paragraphs or whatever based on your tests. So I feel like that would probably be a handy point of reference for y'all. So y'all know obviously like how to write it, because this is a pretty like open-ended paper. Also, I know that we have a few people in here who took micro last semester, I think. Abel also said that y'all can use your papers from last semester that you wrote. Just like obviously making sure that like the tests are different and the bacteria itself is different, but you can also use that as like a reference if these are last semester. But other than that, I don't know why I closed my laptop because I need to look at the table for y'all's numbers. So go ahead, if you haven't already, wash your hands. Grab gloves, and then as you get that done, go ahead and come up here so I can give y'all your bacteria and you can get started on your gram stain.
I'm so scared.